All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're talking about Sally Hogshead's Fascinate, which is all about how to get people to actually listen to you in a world that's, well, completely distracted. And just how distracted are we? You might be surprised.
Get this. A BBC report says our average attention span has shrunk to just 9 seconds. 9. That's actually 1 second less than a goldfish. Think about that for a second. You have less time to make an impression than a fish in a bowl before someone's brain just clicks away to the next thing.
Sally Hogshead calls this the ADD world. And it's so true, right? We are just drowning in choices. I mean, think about it. You go to the store and there are 41 different kinds of Tide. You open up Netflix and bam, 70,000 titles are staring back at you. It's just too much. Our brains are on constant overload. And honestly, we have to ignore most of it just to stay sane. So, that brings us to the big question, doesn't it? In a world that literally refuses to pay attention, how on earth do you get heard? Attention is the new currency, and it is scarce. It means if you've got something important to say or a great product to sell, just being good isn't going to cut it anymore. You have to find a way to break through all that noise. So how do you do it?
Well, the answer isn't what you might think. It's not about shouting louder or being more flashy. No, the real secret is to become fascinating. It's about casting a sort of spell that makes people, well, they just can't look away from your message.
And here's the thing you really gotta get about fascination. It's not logical at all. It's this primal gut level thing. In fact, the word comes from the Latin fascinare, which literally means to bewitch. It completely bypasses our rational brain and just grabs us. And believe me, this idea is nothing new. People have been obsessed with this kind of power for a very, very long time.
And here's a wild story that shows you just how powerful people thought this was. Back in 1692, during the Salem witch trials, this poor guy, Giles Corey, was actually accused of fascination. The court said he'd basically mesmerized people, bewitched them, so they couldn't think straight. His punishment? He was slowly crushed to death with heavy stones for 2 days. And his last words were just, "more weight," just to get it over with. I mean, that's how dangerous and potent they believe this power to be.
Okay, so how do we tap into that same power? Preferably without the whole being crushed by stones thing. Well, Sally Hogshead breaks it down for us. She's identified 7 specific triggers. Think of them as secret weapons of persuasion that you can use to really captivate people. All right, here are the 7 triggers. You've got lust, which is all about creating that sense of anticipation. Then there's mystique, which gets people curious with unanswered questions. Alarm, which creates urgency. And rounding out the list are prestige, power, vice, and trust. But here's the most important part, okay? This isn't about learning 7 brand new complicated skills. The big secret is you're already using these every single day. You just probably don't realize it. The whole point is to start using them on purpose. So let's look at a couple of these in action. First up, let's talk about mystique. This trigger is fascinating. It's all about pulling people in with puzzles and secrets. You know that feeling when you just have to know the answer? That's mystique. By holding back a little bit of information, you create this itch in people's brains that they desperately need to scratch. And you want the perfect example of mystique in action? Look no further than Jägermeister. Yeah, that German liqueur. This is a brand that built a global empire on a drink that, let's be honest, most people think tastes pretty awful. So how do they pull it off? Well, Jaeger has this really intense kind of medicinal taste, right? Back in 1985, this article comes out calling it liquid Valium and claims it's full of opium and aphrodisiacs. Now, most companies would freak out and deny everything, not them. The marketer, a guy named Sidney Frank, leaned into it. He literally photocopied the article and stuck it up in college bars all over the US. Then, the company kept its 56 ingredients a total secret, which just led to even crazier rumors, like that it was made with elk's blood. And the result? Sales shot up 40% a year. See, people weren't buying the drink, they were buying the mystery. Okay, next up is the alarm trigger. And man, this one is powerful. It works by introducing a threat, some kind of negative consequence that makes people feel a sense of urgency. It's the trigger that makes you sit up and pay attention right now. And there's a really key insight about alarm that this quote from a classic ad campaign just nails. The secret isn't to talk about the most likely bad thing that could happen, it's to talk about the most feared one. There's a huge difference. So here was the problem. A famous ad writer named Luke Sullivan realized that teenagers just don't fear death in the same way adults do.
You can show them a picture of a car crash and it just doesn't register. But what are they absolutely terrified of? Social embarrassment, losing their independence. So what did he do? He created an ad that showed a kid getting a ride to prom from his mom. I mean, can you imagine? That's social suicide. For a teen, the thought of losing their license and having to be chauffeured by mom was a way more powerful alarm than the thought of a car accident.
Okay, so that's how it works for big brands like Jägermeister. But what about for us? How does this apply to you? What's your own personal fascination style?
Well, Hogshead actually came up with something she calls an F-score, which is basically a way to measure how naturally fascinating someone is. And the truth is, some people and some brands are just more captivating. They have a high F-score. You know who I'm talking about. They're the rock stars, the rebels, the people in the room you just can't take your eyes off of.
So let's put this into perspective. The book contrasts two different people. First, there's Margaret. She's got a low F-score. She's unassuming, gentle, super reliable, the kind of person who avoids the spotlight. Then you have Eric, total high F-score. The book calls him a jumper cable of energy. He's fiercely creative, a big shot leader, and yeah, he's definitely polarizing. Not everyone's gonna like him. And nothing sums up Eric's personality better than this one quote. Someone asked him, "Eric, how are you fascinating at the office?" And without missing a beat, he just deadpans, "I make people cry." And apparently the whole room just erupted in laughter because they knew he was kinda, sorta, not kidding. And that's the thing about high F-score people. You might not always like them, but you absolutely cannot ignore them. They are fascinating.
And that really brings us to the heart of it all. This isn't about faking it or trying to become some completely different person. The whole point is you are already fascinating. We all are. You're using these 7 triggers all the time without even thinking about it. So the only question you have to ask yourself is this: are you using the right ones? Are you using them in a way that gets you what you want? Because that is the real secret to finally being heard in a world that just doesn't want to listen.